Welcome to Bethel World Outreach Church. Our values are devotion, diversity, and discipleship. Devotion through honoring God by trusting His Word, praying, and worshiping together. Diversity by embracing God's heart for every nation. And discipleship by helping others follow Jesus. So join us as we're reaching a city to touch the world.
How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to Bethel Midweek. It is good to be here. If we have not met, my name is Bryson, and I am around here a little bit less these days because I lead a church called Bethel Midtown, and it is on the corner of 19th and Church downtown, and we're actually soon to be on the corner of 18th and Church. If you didn't hear, we have a new home in May, and so if you're looking for something to do, just a Sunday in May, you come on down to 18th and Church, and we would love to have you with us. But it is just my joy to be here with you as we continue to talk about this topic that Pastor Dave has been talking about the last 2 weeks, spiritual maturity. Spiritual maturity. So I would actually venture to say, if you're here on a Wednesday night, you're at a church, you're wanting to learn stuff about God and all of those things. You're here to do the church thing. You probably have a desire in your heart to some degree to become spiritually mature. I don't think that's really going out on a limb to say that we all desire to have spiritual maturity, which is what we've been talking about the last 2 weeks. We want to be people who are patient when life is frustrating. We want to be people who are steadfast when things get hard. We want to be people who are gracious with others. We want to be people connected to God, people who know the Word, people who pray. We want to be spiritually mature, right? We have a desire that when life is uncertain, we stay faithful. We have a desire for that to be a part of our life. We would love to be called spiritually mature. The problem is sometimes that we can see spiritual maturity. We have kind of this picture of what that might look like, and then we see us, and we're not quite sure how to get from here to there. We've been talking for the last few weeks about what spiritual maturity is, and tonight we're going to talk about how to grow towards spiritual maturity. The good news is that in the book of James, he tells us a little bit kind of about how to go from where we are to a level of spiritual maturity. If you are not as familiar with the Bible and you have yours, let me just tell you where the book of James is coming up on the screens. That's the first page of your Bible, and the last page is about 90% of the way through. You can turn to the book of James now. But you've met that person. You've met that spiritually mature person that you want to be like one day. They're grounded, they're calm, they're strong. They maybe have survived things that you and I might not have been able, it would have broken us. And we're like, it makes me think though about a tree that we have in our front yard. We live in a neighborhood. We don't live in, the rural, Tennessee. We live just in a kind of a regular suburban neighborhood, and we have these 2 trees. Now, our kids are counting down the days until they become what they call climbing trees. Because they have their friends have trees that they can climb in, and they're saying one day these are going to be climbing trees. Now, they don't know that long before that happens, the HOA is going to tell us we got to cut them, lower because we do that. It's just part of the thing. Now, I'm not trying to brag, but, we've gotten a couple HOA letters on how tall they've been. So again, sorry, not trying to boast in that, but we have some trees. And so, but it makes me think, they're tall in comparison to the trees next to them. And sometimes we can start to feel spiritually mature when we compare ourselves to maybe how we were, the people to our left and right. But being from the West Coast, I've been around something that you might have as well, and that's the coastal redwoods. Have you ever seen one of these trees? Or maybe it just looks like a screensaver because it is. I think that Mac actually has that as a built-in screensaver, but it's real. These trees can be 15 feet wide, 300 feet tall, the tallest capping out about 380 feet. These trees. And so these are firm, they're strong, they're established, they're rooted deeply. And through these, all of a sudden, even though I've gotten letters from the HOA, the one-day climbing tree in my front yard starts feeling pretty small. And we look at people who we would think of as spiritually mature, and all of a sudden, the red oak in their world the coastal redwood of their steadfastness in God starts to make us feel like an HOA tree. And we go, well, what is it about them? Is it that you just have a certain personality type? Or is it that they have certain strengths finders, on the Gallup test, the Clifton Strengths Finder? What is it about that person? And so we start to dissect and think maybe they read their Bible more, and maybe they go to church more, and whatever it might be to be more spiritually mature than us. But eventually we start to throw our hands up and say, well, whatever it is, they've already done it. Maybe they were just born that way, and I wasn't. So I guess I'll just kind of puddle along and just do my best. Well, the good news, hopefully you've had a moment to get 90% of the way through the Bible to James in the time that I've been talking. But once we get to James tells us a little bit about how to become spiritually mature. In verse 4 of the first chapter, it says this, that perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Well, that actually seems pretty simple. If I want to be mature, I just got to let this thing called perseverance do it for me. It's going to finish the work. So all I got to do is figure out, perseverance. It sounds like a pretty good guy. I like perseverance. If it's going to do the work for me, but you might notice by a little space in the front, it's not the entire thought. It comes after a couple of verses, and let's just rewind the tape a couple verses to see exactly how that perseverance might come. He says this in verse 2. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. James is one of the earliest books written in the New Testament. This is from James, the leader of the church, one of the leaders of the church, and he sends this to a group of people who are scattered and suffering. These are people being oppressed for their faith. And notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't minimize their pain. He doesn't say, just get over it. What he does is he refuses to let them misunderstand it. That rather than just disregarding their pain and saying, get over it, it's going to be all right, just rub some dirt in it and get back in the game. No. He says, look at what's actually happening. Look at what's actually happening. Because if you look at some of the highlighted words as they come up on the screen here, it's trials that turn into testing, that produce perseverance, that are going to bring you into maturity. He wants to make sure that it's clear and contextualized, that it's going towards something bigger. But it's important for us to realize who he's writing to. These aren't people who are just having a bad day. It's not people who just the Starbucks line was a little bit too long and now they're questioning the existence of God. It's not people who, they wanted that part in the community theater play and somebody else got Daddy Warbucks. It's not what it was. It's not disappointment. No, we're talking about extreme poverty. We're talking about persecution. We're talking about imprisonment. We're talking about even tension within the church about how to handle some of these things. So when he talks about trials of many kinds, he's talking about real stuff. And I would venture to say you're probably going through some real stuff too. That sure, you've experienced a long drive-through line, and sure, you've overheard water cooler talk that might not have been flattering of you, some small things, but I would venture to say that you've probably gone through some hard stuff too. You've lost a relationship. You've lost a loved one. You've wondered how you would make it financially. You've had difficulties at your workplace. You've gone through hard stuff too. And we go, well, that's great. That's awesome that maturity is available and that God has a plan and all that stuff. Woohoo. But right now, it just feels like I'm in a trial. because I see maturity far, far off. It's in a galaxy far, far away. And I'm here in a trial. As my good friend Pastor Philip often says, that Christians are in one of three places. They're either coming out of a trial, in the middle of a trial, or about to go into one. Welcome. But he makes it really clear in this sequence of thought, these trials producing testing, producing perseverance, producing maturity, that God isn't just doing something for us after the trial. He's doing something in us through the trial. Now think about what that might be for you. I listed a few examples, but chances are, whether it's at the top of your consciousness or you've buried it down, you're probably going through a trial right now. There's something right now testing you. But James is telling us that the answer might not be on the other side. The answer might be right in front of you. Because spiritual maturity doesn't grow in the absence of trials, it grows in the middle of them. In the middle of what you're facing, and I love what he says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Not if, but when. He doesn't say, hey, if it's a bad day, just count it joy. But here's where it gets difficult for me. I have been through hard things. You've been through hard things. We've all been through hard things together. We'll, hold hands and we'll cry together. It's going to be all right. But we all been through hard things. In the middle of my hard things, when I've gone through them, you know what the last thing that I've counted that as? You know about maybe the least encouraging thing you could say to me on the worst day ever? Hey, just count it as joy. Just pretend you're happy. Just count it as if you're joy. No. Trials aren't fun. But this sequence of thought shows us something. This morning when you woke up and you brushed your teeth, I hope you brushed your teeth, but when you brushed your teeth, you took your toothpaste and you squeezed it. And what came out? Toothpaste. Why? Because it was inside of it. And when we get squeezed, what's inside of us comes out. And so when life starts putting tension and pressure on our life, James tells us it's going to produce testing. And when you go through a test in school, testing isn't meant to condemn you. It's not meant to fail you. It's meant to show you how you're doing. You take, maybe if you're in school right now, you're getting ready for finals. It's saying, have you learned everything you need to learn? Where are you at in your process, in your progress? So when you go through trials, this thing happens where it reveals where you're at currently and gives you a little bit of a status update. And if I was just talking to someone today who was feeling like, man, I've been going through some things and I'm not proud of everything that's been coming out of me. And so if you feel like now your relationship with God is on again, off again, and today was a good day and today was a bad day, just know, hey, guess what? If you're a Christian, any bad day has been put on a cross. Anytime you messed up has been put on a cross. It was nailed to this guy named Jesus, buried with him. And when he got up, your sin didn't. Your sin has been taken care of. Okay? So this sort of testing is not saying, are you going to heaven or not? It's not saying, are you a real Christian? I mean like a real Christian. Or are you like one of those posers? So before we get that in our head, no, the testing is showing us where we're at. It's a little bit of a status update. And so we discover where we really are. We discover how I actually been trusting God. We discover areas that we might not be as patient as we want to be, as gracious as we want to be, as loving as we want to be. My wife and I were talking to a single person the other day, and they were saying, how, one day when they get married and they have kids, and my wife said something so great. She said, you want to find out how selfish you are? Get married. And she said, if you want to find out how impatient you are, have kids. Because pressure has a way of showing us what's on the inside of us. And in this journey towards spiritual maturity, it has to start with honesty. You will never grow to the next level if you're not honest about the level you're at right now. It just won't happen. But life has a way of giving us status updates to see your spiritual health. Back in 2020, I think we can all agree it was a weird year. And we did some weird stuff. You might have seen memes of people wearing plastic bags with holes, at the grocery store. You might have seen there's the air filter that guy made, if you saw that viral meme. But we did weird stuff in COVID. Something I did, I'm not an incredibly handy guy. I'm not like Mr. Woodworking, Mr. Fix Your Car guy. I have other skills, those just aren't them. And so, but I decided, you know what? We have a deck. We wanted some stairs going down this way. Between me and YouTube and a couple phone of friends, I could probably figure it out. And so I did. I got the tools, I got the lumber, got the supplies, and so I did the stuff, went to YouTube, made a couple phone calls, got some friends to help me. And we're not talking something crazy, but 6 steps. It's 6 more steps than I had built prior to that. And so 6 steps built it. And so again, sorry to brag, but here's a picture of it. It happened. So there we go. Like when you don't do a lot of impressive stuff, when you do, you got to just show a crowd. But here's the deal. I followed the YouTube advice, measured this stuff, all of that, put it together. And I could go, this looks like steps. And I could even go, this, I did the measurements and all that stuff. It's probably going to work. But there's a difference between seeing them and putting my weight on them. Because until there's weight put on it, you don't know if it can actually withstand the weight that's coming. And in the same way, we can build our faith and we can have our picture of Christianity that's comfortable for us. And we can go, well, this suits my life. I read my Bible as much as is, comfortable for my schedule. I go to church as much as comfortable for, unless, if it's too bad of weather, then of course I'm not going to go there. But if it's too nice of weather, of course I need to enjoy the weather outside. Why would I go there? So on the nice middle days, that's when I'm going to go to church, so long as the air conditioning is right and the seats are comfortable. So we say, well, okay, I'm going to go. Well, of course, that's not you. You're here on a Wednesday night. You love God. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the pieces of all of us that say, well, I could read my Bible or I could get that extra 30 minutes of sleep. I guess I did stay up too late watching Netflix, but okay, whatever. I'm just going to sleep anyway. We're like, the pieces of us that prefer to be comfortable, we build this life of faith that looks like stairs. And we go, well, it probably could. But when life puts its weight on us, it shows us the testing of our faith produces something.
Yes.
It gives us a status update for how we're actually doing. For if the stairs can actually withhold the weight that's coming. But he goes on and he tells us that God doesn't just use pressure to reveal something in us, but to build something in us. See, trials lead to the testing of your faith. And I think about just over the last few years as we have been planting this church. It has been, quite the process. And in that, if you've ever been around an environment like that, it costs a lot. It doesn't just cost dollars, it costs a lot of time, a lot of tears, a lot of pain. And it takes a lot out of you. And I think about relational turmoil that's happened, things that have been said about me that weren't true, things that we've walked through the last few years, some of the hardest years of our life. This is, I think, the only season of my life. I'm laughing now. It wasn't that funny then, but it's a little bit funny now. That my wife walked in to our walk-in closet, and I was just laying on the floor. I just cried. I was just crying. And she was like, "What are you crying?" I was like, "I don't even know. This is just hard. It's just hard." And people, someone said a month ago or so, because it's been a really great season at our church. We've more than doubled since January. And so we're seeing people we had more than 200 people come on Easter. We just crossed the 70th person that we baptized the last 2 years. We're seeing people come out of numerous different lifestyles following Jesus. So we're seeing so it's been an incredible few months of growth and things that you can see on the outside. And so we're seeing God's faithfulness show up in that kind of way. And someone said, man, this is like an overnight success. I said, that was a really long night. That was a really long night. And there was hours of that night I wasn't sure if I was going to make it to the morning. But I look at not only what God has done through us, but in us. And I almost don't recognize the guy 2 years ago. Because God planted something in us that could only come through the testing of our faith, through the trials that we were put through the things that were hard. God planted something deep. And I wish there was another way. I wish that I could talk about how spiritual maturity comes by positive thinking. I wish I could give you some breathing tactics that would just help. But I'd rather be honest. And I'd rather tell you that if you want to become spiritually mature, it's going to cost you something. Because the trials in your life, they're just testing of your faith. And I'll tell you something that starts to change. It starts to change how you pray. Because I think in the middle of hard times in the past, I used to pray, God, why? God, why are you doing this? God, and even just in the midst of the last few years, there's times of prayer saying, God, I'm doing what you said to do. God, I'm doing my part. God, help this person get their head on straight. God, help this person stop doing that. God, get me out of this situation. But I stopped praying why, because God showed me it's not about why, it's about what. God, it shifts to what do you want to do in me? What do you want to change in me? Because the pressure is meant to produce something. And now is where we get to perseverance. Our trials are just testing of your faith. Well, now we get to perseverance. And perseverance is not passive resignation. It's not throwing in the towel and saying, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, I guess. It's faithful endurance. It's where your feet stick to the floor a little harder. It's where you're not looking for pain, but when it comes, you say, I can take another. I can hang in there one more punch. I can hang in there one more round. I can do this because I can do this because I can do this. And let me tell you, there are some things that God can only grow in us through staying, through enduring, through waiting. And I think about a few examples. I just want to share 3 examples in the scripture of people who had to learn the hard way about these truths. One of them is Abraham. There was pictographs that were found in the ancient world, and that's what he looked like. So it's factual. He didn't have large eyes, apparently, nor a mouth. But Abraham. And you think about the character of Abraham in the Bible, early in Genesis chapter 12. He gets this incredible promise from God. He gets the promise that he's going to have, he didn't have any kids, him and Sarah, his wife, they didn't have any kids. And he says, that nations are going to come out of you. That you look up at the stars and you're not even going to be able to count how many kids you're going to have. And through your line, the whole world is going to be blessed. He has this incredible, essentially it's almost a thesis statement of the Bible in some ways. The Bible is the unraveling of this promise made to Abraham. And guess what happens right after it? Nothing. He obeys. And I'm like, man, God in the universe just told me all the sweet. When's it coming, God? So a year passes. Nothing. And 5 years pass. Nothing. 10 years. Nothing. 15. Nothing. And 25 years later, his wife is pregnant. You go, well, it must have been quintuplets at least. I mean, we got to get this thing started, God. Nope, just one. 25 years of waiting. What would you be tempted to think at year 10? What would you start thinking at year 20? I mean, it goes from, maybe did I mishear God? Did I hear him wrong? Is God punishing me? Is God not trustworthy? Does he not actually come through on his promises? I mean, that's maybe where my head would go. Where would yours go? And what if he quit at year 24? What if at year 24 he said, you know what, I tried. I gave it a shot. But I guess God just isn't faithful. And I guess he actually doesn't do what he said he was going to do, but God is showing Abraham the same thing I think he's showing us, that spiritual maturity is submitting to his timeline rather than our own. It's saying, God, even if it doesn't happen when I think it should happen, you're still in control. Even when it doesn't look the way I want it to look, even in disappointment, even in pain, this is not just building something around me or for me, it's building something in me. Because in waiting, God is not withholding something from you. And Jesus is proof of that. The Abraham's quarter of a century that he waited on God's promise was ultimately fully fulfilled in the person of Jesus. And that happened because he waited. God is not withholding something for you. There might be something that you feel like God has put in you and said over you and said to you, and you're believing and you're trusting, and you feel like, man, how long do I have to wait? Has it been a quarter of a century yet? And maybe it has. But over and over we see that God's timeline is different than ours. And we don't see that just in Abraham. I think about like Joseph. Joseph, who is his Technicolor Dreamcoat, again, pictographs from the ancient world. Don't Google it, just trust me, that's it. That's for sure it. But Joseph has this dream. When he's young, he's a teenager, and he has this dream of a level of authority and people bowing down to that authority, specifically his brothers. A little moral of the story, if you have a dream like that, don't tell your brothers. Not going to go well for you, as seen by him. He gets thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and the disappointments just keep coming. Gets placed in Potiphar's house and gets falsely accused by his wife for making a pass at her that he didn't, gets put in prison. And then he has a moment where he interprets the dream of the cupbearer of Pharaoh. And then when the cupbearer makes it back to the big house, it's like, this is my moment. If I'm Joseph, piece by piece, I'm like, well, I'm in a pit. No, I got a job. And he goes, no, I got a good job. No, I got accused. Oh, I'm in prison. At least I might get out because of this cupbearer. Nope, he gets forgotten about. The guy with the dream that God spoke to in a prison. If I'm Joseph, I'm saying, some calling this is, God. And maybe you're in here and you feel like God gave me a dream. God put the business idea on my heart. God had the family that I feel like he wants me to create and lead and steward. God put this on my heart, but it's just not happening. But what was looking like Joseph's delay, what looked like God delaying him, was actually God developing him. Because Joseph, when you continue to read in the last few chapters of Genesis, he did end up in a position of authority, the number 2 guy in Egypt. And as he's with Pharaoh and as he's there, makes incredible decisions and leads Egypt well. But if he was going from the pit to the palace overnight, he would have had the position, yes, but he wouldn't have had the character to sustain it. Hear me. The things that are disappointing you right now, could I propose that maybe God is trying to build a person ready for the dream that he's already given you? Because the dream that he's given you is bigger than where you're at right now. And the only way you're going to get there is some trials that are going to lead to testing, to give you an opportunity for perseverance, to build into maturity. See, the whole time, he wasn't just preparing a throne for Joseph, he was preparing Joseph for the throne.
Right, that's good.
The God delaying in your life, it's him developing you into the person that can actually walk it out. Because I'll tell you, me 2 or 3 years ago when this whole thing started, was not ready to lead a church of 200. I needed to go through a little bit of hard. I needed to talk to Pastor Dennis about how I wanted to quit every couple weeks. It'd be after Wednesday night, and he might as well have said, well, what hard happened this week? Well, they left the team, and I didn't like this, and it was a year or two of boo-hooing. But I couldn't do what I'm doing now if I hadn't walked through what I walked through then. And I'm not the hero of the story, because I think the same can be said of you. Look at what you're doing right now. You couldn't have done it a decade ago. Why? Because you weren't you a decade ago. But what he's done in you, even through the hard things, the testing of your faith has produced a perseverance which has led to maturity. And maturity came in Joseph's life by him trusting God through it. If I could do just one more example, you look at the life of David. Pictographs, check it out. Actually don't. But you have this example of David. And you might be familiar with the story as a young shepherd. It's a crook. When it's stick figures, that's actually a little confusing, because it's like, is that is a snake? Is that a mangled half body of another stick figure? You don't know, but it's a crook, shepherd's crook. But he goes through, he's a young boy, and he gets anointed by Samuel as king. Samuel says, I'm here because God told me the next king is here. And he comes, he anoints him. I mean, as anointed as you could possibly be by a prophet. This is a real deal prophet, not a junior varsity prophet, real prophet. He came, oil, prayers, whole thing. He is anointed as king. And similarly to Abraham, what happened the next day? Nothing. Back to the sheep pen. And imagine how confusing it would be to be David. He goes, I thought, we were there, right? Nobody got video? Nobody? Really? I thought I just got anointed king, and now I'm back with the stinky sheep. But get this, David's life didn't just stay the same, it got worse. He kind of got his little upgrade because he can play the harp and the king's presence, so that's pretty cool. King Saul. Well, next thing you know, King Saul starts sniffing about this prophecy, and he wants to kill him. David, now running from his life, living in caves. Sure, he's got his little band of people, but nothing compared to what was happening on the other team trying to get him. He's living in caves, running for his life. The guy who just had oil on his head. Abraham waited a quarter of a century. Joseph, 13 years. David, 15 years. But God taught David things in the cave that he could never learn in the palace. And even though many times David had the opportunity to grab what God had promised, to kill Saul, to take it back. He chose to trust God, to trust him. See, in David's case, being delayed teaches that God is not just a God of promise, he's a God of process. And we can be so quick to grab the promise of God and try and usurp the process of God, but they come as a package deal. That every promise comes with a process. And we see it over and over in Scripture, because David eventually does become king, but it's the waiting that formed him, that made him the most notable king in Israel's history. I say all this to say that in the waiting, in the disappointment, in the setbacks, in the delay, God is doing something. These three people show us God uses waiting to form trust. God uses setbacks to form character. God uses delay to form humility. And if we choose to lean in, then God can form something in us. But when we choose to lean out, something else happens. See, we want God to change our circumstances, but we don't realize often God's trying to change us. And we get it reversed a little bit at times, but God is more committed to your maturity than to your comfort. He's more committed to your maturity than to your comfort. It says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So your trials, they lead to the testing of your faith. They lead to perseverance. I have a friend who just ran the Boston Marathon the other day, just on Monday. And I remember I texted him in the afternoon, and I said, hey, I was thinking about you today. How did it go? Just a little status update. And he said it was great. The first 20 miles I felt great. And the last 6 were a battle. I said, first, can we just talk about how insane it is to say 20 miles felt great? Yeah. That's wild. But in some further conversation, that's actually a thing. They call mile 20 the wall. If you run a marathon, they call between mile 20 and mile 22, that's when the wall hits. It's when your body's sugar levels are depleted. It's where the adrenaline that got you at least into the game has worn off completely. It's when it goes from a physical thing to a mental thing, and you have to decide, am I going to finish or not? The thing that got you to mile 20 is not what's going to get you the rest of the way, because guess what? It's not a 20-mile race. By the time you hit the wall, you still have 6 left to go. And some of you in here right now, or even joining us online, we can look at stick figures and David and Abraham and all that stuff, but the reality is you're at mile 20. That you're not at the, well, this is kind of hard. You're at the, can I make it another day? And I've been at mile 20. And if you're not there now, you probably have been there at a certain point. But the thing is, if we don't go through trials, we don't have our faith tested, we will never have the opportunity to build perseverance. You will never have a moment where God can show you can make it past the wall. Because you'll never make it through mile 20 if you never make it to mile 20. So it's coming at the point where you have to decide. And it starts changing again from why me to God, what are you doing in me? It changes from how I made it this far to how I'm going to make it even further. And now we get to that verse that we started, where we consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work. He personifies perseverance as if it's another person doing the work. Perseverance, let's be clear as we look at this journey to maturity. Trials are inevitable. They are coming. Trials will test your faith, whether you like it or not. That's happening. Perseverance, though, is your choice. Because trials will test your faith. But the thing that decides if you mature or not is this word right in the middle, perseverance. If you choose to engage in it, it builds maturity. If you choose to numb yourself, isolate, or quit, it won't. And I have found in my life, especially when I spend time with people who are far more spiritually mature than I am, that so much of spiritual maturity is just not quitting. It's just staying in the game. It's hitting mile 20 and saying, I think I got another mile in me. And hitting mile 21 and saying, I think I can do one more. I think I can take a few more steps. I think I can walk a little bit further. And he says that when we let perseverance finish its work, that we become mature and complete, not lacking in anything. The word he uses for complete here is beautiful. It is two parts. One part saying whole and entire. The other part saying part, portion, allotment. It literally means every part of you is whole. Now, it doesn't mean every part is perfect. Maturity is a journey. Once we get to, the crazy thing is the analogy breaks down because you get to mile 26, you're like, I made it. It's like, actually, it's a double marathon. It keeps on going. We keep on journeying. We keep on growing with Jesus. But there becomes a point where we realize God's actually done something in me. God's starting to move through me, and I think I can keep going. So how do we actually grow? That's the question. How do I grow? Well, we've already determined that trials are inevitable. So what we do in the trial is going to determine what comes out of it and what is built in us. And so can I encourage you, the first thing we're going to do when the trial comes, not if, but when, is we're going to ask better questions. We're not going to jump to why me. We're not going to jump to how do I get out of it. We're going to ask God after we take a couple breaths, we calm down, we say, God, what are you trying to do in me? God, how are you trying to mature me? How are you trying to use this disappointment, use this frustration? What are you trying to do in me? The second thing we're going to do is we're going to stay faithful in small ways. Because you cannot control the future. But you can control if you pray. You can control if you keep coming to church. 100% in your control. You can control if you stay around Christian community. You can control if you keep showing up. You can control being obedient in the small things. And so we might not be able to control the next year, but we can control the next few minutes, and we can choose to continue to do the right thing. And it's a wonderful thing because I've found that years are actually made up of minutes. And if I just get through this minute and this hour and this day, then I just have to do that 365 times. We're going to stay faithful in small ways, and we're going to let perseverance finish its work. Because maturity is not about arriving, it's about God building something in us. Because we want to be like the coastal redwoods. We want people to look at our life and say, I want to be like that. I want to be strong like that. I want to be faithful like that. I want to be immovable like that. That's what I want to be. And I want people to say that about your life. I want your kids to look up to your faith. I want your kids to tell their kids about how they learned from their mom or their dad how to love God. I want your coworkers to want what you have. I want the barista at your favorite coffee shop to wonder what's different about you. I want your life to look like one of these trees, but I need to tell you one more thing about these trees, because you can look at them just like we did in the beginning and say, how do I possibly get there? See, these mainly happen in California, and every few years in California, or even more often at times, there's a forest fire. And the thing you have to know about these coastal redwoods is that they're pine cones. They only open through immense heat. They only open through heat caused by forest fires. That the forest fire clears the brush around it, puts nutrients into the soil, ready for it to grow to its next level. So if you want your life to look like this, be ready for this. Because what seems like it's causing destruction or devastation, might I propose that it might just be God preparing the soil for what he wants to grow in you. That the thing that seems like it's a delay, it's not a denial, it's development. That God's building in you the character you need to sustain what he has waiting for you. That if we want to be spiritually mature, then when we go through the hard stuff and we choose to persevere instead of quit, well, guess what? James says you got it. All you have to do is not quit. All you have to do is not quit. I love Pastor Mike Gowans, who's the Bethel Chandler's pastor. He said it's not wrong to want to quit. It's just wrong to quit. You can want to quit all you want. You just can't quit. But if we say, I got another mile in me, I can take another punch. I can go another round. James tells us that maturity is inevitable. That perseverance itself will do the work. If I could just close with a quote. We think about, how do I even get started? How do I go there? Because some of these trees, these redwoods, are 2,000 years old. It's an ancient Chinese proverb asked, how do I, when should I plant a tree? It says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The only way that you're going to have decades of faithfulness 2 decades from now is if you start being faithful today. And the people that you look to, those redwoods, have been through some forest fires. And you will too. But God has something in it for you that Paul describes in the book of Romans. It's not even worthy of comparing to the future glory that God has for you in the life that is to come. Could we pray together? Lord, help us stay faithful. Help us continue to trust you. And I pray that every hard thing that my friends in this room are going through, you would tonight give context to it. You might not be able to explain it away, and it might not get better today or next week or next year. But I pray that you would make us people who persevere. That you would build something in us that can only come through the forest fire. Lord, we choose, even now, with the hard stuff that's happening right now, that we're walking back home to, I pray in difficult marriages. I pray in hard work scenarios. I pray in any sort of conflict that someone's going through, financial discouragements. I pray that phone calls from debt collectors, whatever things might be coming right now, I pray that you show us what you're doing in it, not just how to get through it or out of it, but God, would you do something in us? Help us be more faithful to you. Help us trust you more. Help us be more committed. Help us be stronger in our faith. Give us the faith for one more punch, God. Yes. Give us the faith for one more mile. Hallelujah. Knowing that you are faithful to complete everything that you start. God, our response to you is trust. Let's close our time by worshiping God.